questions. So we can also go back and provide written responses later on so that we can also post it on Slack.
Can we ask questions now?
Sure.
Cool. I'll go ahead and post this in the chat as well for your guys' benefit. But I guess my first question is, just looking at the HACC challenge document that was posted, is this the exhaustive list of resources you guys would like included in the directory?
Mari, I'll give that one to you or Catherine to answer.
Mimari, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's not exhaustive. However, we also want many of the resources that we listed are overlapping in even on those links that we provided in the challenge application. So that's one aspect of our resource app concept. While there may be websites or other repository, if you will, might be existing, but the list is one, long, and two, hard to navigate, and three, duplicative across different websites, and very global or broad. So that's one of the ideas that we had, how we can actually have more streamlined, easy to navigate, easy to find, one-stop shop resource app. So we can add more, but we also wanted to somewhat manageable level of information and resources. Catherine, would you like to add?
No, I think not. Well, so I'm gonna go to, let's see, I think it's Jennifer's question. Actually, let's go to Leanne's question. Is this first go around to be strictly by employees? Yes, it is. And the reason for that is because there are existing clients already. So that's why we want to start with them. So state workers that are already working with clients and not necessarily just for the general public at this point in time. And then Jennifer's question is about, it seems like both state employees, sorry, Jennifer's question was, is there some kind of government database with all the resources, or do we create it on our own? So there really isn't a database of these resources. So, we would probably have to work with you to provide you links and kind of work you through the programs as best as we can.
I have a question. This is Denise. When you're dealing with individuals, constituents of the state, and you're dealing with it, they need to understand the resources, and that is a major challenge for everybody. Is like there's so many services that are available. Are you looking to employ any type of technology that would say resources that are relevant near me, like like mapping resources, like if I put in my zip code, then I understand the resources that are near me that I can go to?
That's an excellent question. And yes, we would like that to be the case, especially various islands. Neighbor islands may have different resources available. So that will be a fantastic way of including geographic or services or benefits or resources near you. That'll be excellent.
And then in addition, because of COVID, we've moved to a virtual platform, so it's statewide. So if we have currently now for our SNAP That's our Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. If you have a question, it was previously that you went to that processing center that was near you or close to you. Now, because of COVID, we're on a virtual platform. What happens is we have a statewide lobby, so the next person on the queue that's available will help you regardless of where you live or which island. So it can work both ways.
Yeah, but if you're talking about like I have to show up and pick up, most people are going to want to be somewhere close to them, right?
Okay, so what are you thinking about? What would they pick up? Because in this virtual space now, what
So
would
if
they
you're
pick
talking
up?
about like for WIC, for example, is that electronic now? Or would they actually, do you see what I'm saying? Because there's certain things that are supplied by WIC. I know like in other places that you actually have to show up to WIC to get. But maybe WIC has changed it because of the virtual thing.
I I can't speak to WIC at the moment, and I can gather that information. And speaking from the human services programs, for example, SNAP, which is the food assistance program, um, it used to be, again, lobby and picking up applications from the lobby, or um, download from our website, and we would need to have to fill that out and drop it off. So given the pandemic, we changed to online application. So now we're able to offer that option, and understanding not everybody has that access to online application devices or internet. So in that sense, yes, we still need to have that somewhat in-person connection, as well as being able to drop it off, which we are still doing that. Just that we are currently, due to social distancing, the lobby itself is closed, but you can still drop or pick up printed materials. Yes.
Got it.
So
Are you guys looking for any type of mobile presence? So meaning like people can do things by phone, like Apple, iOS and, Android as well?
yes.
Okay.
Let's see if I see more questions in the chat. I see Jennifer's question. I think, Catherine, was that the question in terms of the state employees and general public can use?
No, this is a different question.
Okay. So eventually, we would like to start with the state employees, as Catherine was mentioning earlier, because the idea came that our customers or constituent is already at our counter, and that was pre-COVID. We started discussing this just about pandemic started to see in our state. So we were discussing more about from that pre-COVID thinking, and our customer is already visiting our lobby, and they may have other programs that might be available to them, but currently we're not giving warm handoff or offering or referring to other programs that might be available, or the constituent is eligible. So we wanted to start with the state employees and gain knowledge and have tools to assist the customer at that point. So eventually, the tool that we will use will also be available to the general public. So it's even accelerating the access, more, but we want to start with the state employees to make sure we're well equipped. And I hope that answered that question. Let's see. Jennifer had another posting. Is it something like people can download from the Play App Store? Okay. Mobile functionality. Yes. I think both will be great, especially starting with the our employees. It might be easier for desktop app, since we are, generally speaking, sitting in front of the computer, having a couple of screens and helping our clients or residents. But when it expands to the access and availability to the general public, I think it will be great to have that mobile functionality and being able to download from App Store or Google Play.
So I see a question from Leanne. Is this supposed to be, is everything that is sent electronically sent by mail to the recipients? Could you clarify that question, please?
I'm sorry, it wasn't really a question. It was a response to the WIC and how things were getting processed. Being a former recipient of those things, this is how, and it was a long time ago. My daughter is now 14, and utilizing the services of MedQuest and WIC. Yeah, the first initial was we had to go in, but after that, everything was through mail or by email communication. They send you stuff to fill out, you send it right back. And so that's what I was making reference to, just to answer how I view things and how it worked when I was part of the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Leanne. Since we don't have a work expert, we thank you that you are helping us and responding to the question. Perfect.
Yes, thank you so much.
No
And
problem.
you,
Everyone,
Thanks. I'm just happy to see that it's happening on this side. And this is where we can get up. So basically, the ease having the warm handoffs, correct? Like somebody comes in, you ask them a bunch of questions, and by their answers, you can then tell them, hey, you qualify for this, 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 and this, and you should go see them. Here's the numbers that you can go, and you can either they have a case number that says, I've already spoke to somebody, here's my case number, and all my information is there. Am I
yes,
hearing that
yes.
correctly?
Yes.
Hi everyone, this is Daniel from Google. Yeah, I just joined this chat room here.
Thank you for joining, Danielle.
Yeah, I was just heard the challenges earlier. I just have some thoughts there because lately during the COVID-19, so we did a lot of those similar implementations in terms of, I don't know though, I was thinking about maybe some of those maybe relates to the challenges, the solution we may have here. With the COVID-19, there's an overwhelm of calls, right? A lot of the call center ask for like employment benefits and programs and all that. And a lot of times like those call center, there's only like 20, 30 people, but it can handle the general loads. But many times because the overwhelming call that comes in and people just trying to find really basic information, right? The frequent asked questions, all that. So we develop a couple of solutions in multiple states across region that, it's what I call like a virtual agent, right? So instead like a robot that can, not like a traditional audio system, you say press 1, press 2 and all that. So you can actually call in either to do a voice bot or like a chat bot, right? And then the robot will be able to answer your questions, right? And then probably can answer those really simple questions, like if I'm asking for employment benefits, I just want to check the status of where things are, right? And all that, you can actually go to back to the system to answer all those questions. So some of the use cases are interesting, and then it can deflect all those calls, and then it comes to a live agent that, they don't have that burden there to handle that level call. So I thought I want to share this because I think it may relates to some of the things the state trying to resolve here, right? With the multiple programs across multiple departments and with the overwhelm of requests that's coming, how do you using some of those machine learning, AI, automation that really help to process those. Right now, it's more of a manual process right now. Just some of my thoughts here.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Exactly what we hope to accomplish with this resource app, having that capability and being able to, really help ourselves as well as the residents who are in need to navigate through these, complicated government offices to get to the actual support and assistance they need rather quickly than had to go through a lot of various offices and agents and what have you. So great to have that chatbot function, AI to really lead them to the right place rather quickly. So thank you for sharing that thought. Great idea.
Yeah, I love that, Daniel. I'm wondering if the unemployment insurance is utilizing some sort of chatbot, because I would assume a lot of calls that do come through would be maybe how to navigate the online portal, submitting their online claim or creating their profile for the first time, or something that could be easily relatively easily answered through a simple FAQ or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Either the voice bot or there are two things, right? Sometimes the chatbot is probably I was using maybe a more limited term, right? Sometimes in the broader term, we call like a digital assistant, right? So which can be, text from a mobile phone, an iPad, right? Whether calling from a phone or just a web portal, you have like a virtual agent assist that will, you start asking questions, you get into the specific portal, and then, the pop-ups comes out, right? So, well, how can I help you, right? And then it can go totally out of script, right? Because you might have multiple things in your mind because sometimes you don't know what you will ask for, right? You might not have a complete sentence. You might have a spelling error and all that, right? On that side, to be able to understand your intent, right? So there's kind of like you do Google search today. In the early days, you have to spell exactly a sentence, understand what you're asking for. But the machine AI process will kind of like really understand, kind of doing some meditation. Oh, you want to do this, right? Then you can have some kind of like a pop-up like screen or other things. Is it what you want to do, right? So you can direct them to a different, menus, right? And from there, either can be a link to a website they can fill in the applications or going through a frequent asked question website. I can maybe link them to a call center. So there are different ways to do things. So it opens a lot of those possibilities.
Daniel, that's great. I wish we could do something like that. That'd be a perfect solution where, people can get directed to, or even the employees can get directed to specific items, and not even, as you said, may not be even a complete sentence, but the AI process will help them define some of the answers or the links. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Even in
Also, Daniel, I'm wondering if, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if it's possible for the AI to recognize just utterances in different languages as well, because when folks are initially, connected to someone,
so
when they first start speaking, then
absolutely, Google today can our chatbot can probably automatically recognize 4 different type of language automatically. If you start Spanish, for example, it will start talking back in Spanish, but it can cover probably 120 different type of language. And not only that, there's a technology called AutoML, which means that kind of like when you speak the standard English language that people can understand, but sometimes, people can say different things, right? When I call a call center, I can say, hello, how are you doing? People say different, they have different way of expression, right? A lot of times the traditional chatbot may not be able to understand all different type of language accents over there. So it's not just ability to cover different type of language, but also be able to adopt certain type of accents. For example, right, English is my second language. For example, if you work with someone, have a very strong accents, but if you work with that person for over 2 years, you can literally understand everything that person say, right? Because you already adopt in your mind the AI training. This is called like auto ML, right? So the same thing is that if you train those models, so people, even colleagues speak not only different language, I speak with a very strong accents, but over the training, the virtual machine or the chatbot also be able to adopt and understand what you're saying. So the technology is really improving over the time. So there's a lot of interesting thing here. And talking back, right? That's another thing here. It's not like the early version of IVR system that you have a very like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like robotic type of, voice. The WaveNet technology today is really, you can have a robot talks like a human being. And you can go totally out of script, right? Because it's not like script, traditional tree level, right? Because for example, you have a chatbot, like automatic, like a cashier, like go to McDonald's, order a Big Mac, right? So you will say, well, please give your order 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so I like to order number 2, a Big Mac, with some French fry. And then what about if you're driving through, you have 2 kids in your back and say, Mom, Dad, I want to have this action toy, right? And all of a sudden, the machine will understand because this is totally out of script. But with machine learning, it can adopt those out of script type of language and intent and be ability to understand. So you don't have to go through just a very logical, if you do this 1, 2, 3, 4, if people come out with a question that is not programmed, then the machine does not know how to respond to it.
And Daniel, I really appreciate and Jarrett, actually. Jarrett was the one who I believe brought up the language component. And that's very important for our programs, and also in Hawaii, so many various languages are spoken, and compared to the continental US, we have different needs of language. So that's something that we do want to consider moving forward, so that not just our government employees, as we mentioned, when it's ready to expand and make it available to the general public, they have options to select different languages. So that's probably a future, consideration. And yet, when we think about future, we always have to consider that way up front. So that, we would like to, echo what was brought up. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's see. There was some question posted earlier about the use case that we included in the challenge application.
Yeah, so it comes from Eugene. He says, under the solution roadmap section of the use case document, there is mention of 3 separate profiles for each user. Can you elaborate on this?
Okay. Eugene, if you could unmute and perhaps expand a little bit on your question, that'll help us.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the basic flow under solution roadmap, it says to do this, 3 separate profiles should be created that will characterize or describe the user to initiate the search. So my guess is that we're gathering some data from the user. They answer an initial questionnaire of sorts, which sort of determines their preliminary eligibility for various programs. But I'm just curious as to what the 3 different profiles are for, as opposed to just one from that initial questionnaire.
That's a good question. When we were putting together this use case, we were thinking of various entry point and what it might look like. So for example, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 separate profiles, and perhaps we were providing 3 different samples or examples, and perhaps that might be a better terminology to use than more like profiles. I hope that clarifies a little bit better for one thing. And the examples we gave is sort of the typical stories, just like in the presentation, we shared one story of a family that we often encounter or hear about their, challenges. And example one, so we focused on the family, multi-generational family, having the elderly parents and children to care for, and what assistance can be offered. And the second example is a single parent with 2 children. Again, what are the needs of the family and what assistance she and her children are eligible. And the last one is also a different entry point in terms of single person and just coming out of the incarceration. And there are various challenges for those individuals as well when they re-enter coming from incarceration back to the community. So what are the assistance we can offer more holistically? So again, separate profiles may be a little different. We should have used maybe different terminology, but created some sample stories that we often help the residents with, so that it creates some idea as to who those people might be that we often assist, and what are the connections we can make.
So I think just to add to that, the 3 separate profiles show that there's different entry points for this information. One might come from public safety, another might be through early learning office, another one might be through DOH. So there's there's multiple entry points for the information.
Okay, I see. So just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, it's not profiles in the sense of we're collecting 3 different sets of data on each user, but rather there will be multiple intake procedures for this application.
Right.
Yes.
You're correct in that. It's not creating profiles in the program or the system. The profiles are more examples of what the cases might look like.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your excellent question. Okay, let me see.
I think Jennifer had a question.
It looks like these questions, the next 2 questions revolve around collection and storing of user data.
You know, the
Wondering
first,
if-
Yes.
yeah, the first question she had, if I'm reading the correct one, in terms of one stop, it's in terms of one stop, is it like a system where someone enters the type of assistance they're looking for and it generates a list of possible places and it redirects to agency lists? Yes, that's what we would like to see, that, you know, a list of related services that would apply to the person, the client that they're helping would offer. So yes, that is the case.
Actually,
And
if I
this-
may, Ms.
Go
Ige,
ahead.
may I elaborate on that question? I'm
Sure.
wondering if it was ever considered to possibly include city and county services in this, because just from my experiences, a lot of constituents really don't know the difference between what the city and county services are and what differentiates state services and federal services.
You know, you're absolutely right. When we first started this project, we looked at, you know, what information would we provide and offer. And we deliberately decided on just the state system because there's so many services. It's a, you know, it's a huge, huge system. So realistically, we wanted to define it just for state services at this point in time. And we wanted to be successful at that before, you know, considering going beyond the state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And then it looks like the second part of Jennifer's question, I'm sorry, I went over the first part, but it says, does this mean we want to save the user's information somewhere, or is this something caseworkers would handle? And then I think Christine's question kind of echoes that regarding the user's you know, PPI and how that would be facilitated and who would have access.
I think I'll refer that one to Catherine or Memari so it can be answered correctly.
And the response is yes, and the reason is if it's an app and create an account, that's one thing, and whether as I suppose how that can also connect user. I should probably ask Jennifer the clarification. The user information, if we start with the government employees, is the user information you're referring to meaning the resident who comes to our office to apply for benefits?
Yeah, sorry, let me clarify, because one of the user story did say that a result to avoid was Liani is directed to contact each appropriate office to tell her story. So I was confused because in the case of what you're saying, like you just want to generate a list of possible agencies, that's in contradiction to that. So I was wondering, is it more like the state worker, you know, will input the information like single mother needs employee benefits into like a app. So therefore, if she goes to a different service, they can look at the user's profile and be like, oh, this is what you need, to prevent her from retelling the story.
Great question. And that's where we want to get to. And right now, that's not the case. And currently, due to some of the confidentiality issues, that is not only related to state law, but also it has to do with federal laws as well, because many of the programs that we offer to the residents are also either 100% or partly federally funded. So we always have to look at both federal and local laws in terms of confidentiality and privacy. So that in itself is the disconnect and silo work that we as the public employees who are assisting our residents to navigate through. So due to that, many of the programs are still operating in a silo. The databases are specific to that particular program. So crossing the departments, or sometimes even within one department, if you're in a different offices or different programs, the user data or our residents' data may not be shared. So that's how we are siloed and disconnected. But we want to change that, and how we're going to be able to do it from that data system and information or customer information standpoint, that's that also has a lot more into the further conversation about the data systems that we have. But that's where we want to go. So that you're right, we don't want our residents who are already in a situation where so stressed and they come to us, don't need to tell their story each time that person is referred to different programs. Instead, we are able to at least share most of the stories without perhaps personal information, but the story itself, so that they don't need to retell the story.
Okay, gotcha. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I guess just to go off that idea of information security and all the federal regulation and state regulation surrounding that, how concerned should we be in terms of remaining compliant with the user data we collect? Because it does seem like we'll need to, in order to avoid the whole situation of, say, a resident having to tell their story over and over again to various different departments, it does seem like we'll need to collect a degree of user data and store it in some sort of profile.
Excellent question again. And that's the balance we will need to really take a closer as well as deeper look. Compliance also often leads to funding, unfortunately. So we do want to take a look at making sure we're not violating anybody's privacy and also be compliant. And again, sometimes that also creates unnecessary silos between programs or among various departments. So it's an excellent question. We will have to take a deeper look at that. And as the interagency group pursuing this opportunity, we need to further clarify how much risk we can take.
Okay, it looks like Courtney's question was up next. She's asking, will we be provided a list of state available resources and the qualifications for the resources?
Thank you for the question. In the challenge application, as the earlier question from other member of the HACC challenge, we included sample data set in the challenge application. And these are from the 5 departments that are participating in this interagency initiative led by First Lady. And if you Google, there are so many others, whether that's a department or a government agency or what have you. And once again, we wanted to somewhat small or small enough, but not too small, and have pertinent information and resources that are available for the government agency or public employees to be able to connect the residents to in order for us to move towards warm handoffs. Catherine, do you have additional response?
It's a tough question because we can provide some of the resources, but not necessarily all of the qualifications like for eligibility. I think that's what this question might be towards. For example, sometimes the question is, I want to get car insurance. How can I do that? Okay, so it depends on a lot of things. One is first if they're income eligible to apply for SNAP benefits, and then if they're eligible to apply for TANF, which is our temporary assistance for needy families. And with that, you have to have children and children under the age of 18. And, it's sort of like it's a question that's asked and it's a maybe, but it depends on so many things. And because of that, I'm not necessarily sure how deep we can go. So it'd be more like more starting points is where we could refer to. And in that application, if you notice, was sharing our ULU. And so that's like kind of one of the best examples, but we would like to just expand that a little bit more.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Okay, let's see.
Any questions we haven't responded to?
Just listening to your questions, you bring up some really good points, some really good ideas. We're very open to your creativity and your innovation in how we can make this work. I think the more innovative we are, then we can help the people of Hawaii even better. You've brought up some excellent questions and some things we also have to think about in offering this program. But as you can see, with government agencies, because there's so many qualifications, it's, how do we get that information in an easy format? And that'll be, it's something I think that we all struggle with, even not only here, but across the country. Other states are looking at this type of program as well.
Thank you, First Lady. Any additional questions, feel free to post as well as unmute.
Okay, well, we hope you consider us and we hope you consider our project. It's much, much needed. And, we're very open to any questions and we're really open to ideas. So.
Jarrett, did we miss any other questions in the chat?
I don't think so. It looks like there's some other input, no questions. But I guess as a reminder, if you do have questions or you can think of any questions later on, keep those in mind and you can either send those to us via Slack or you can also email us as well. I think at this point, if there's no more questions, I think the next session or the closing is in about 10 minutes. So we can either return to the original room or we can take a break. Thanks again, First Lady. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Mimari. That was a really great presentation. And I'm really excited for some challenges to come this way and possibly solve all of our state problems. Not like there's many,
yes.
but there's lots of them.
We need you.
Right? Right.
We need your creativity.
And we will be grateful, and the people of Hawaii will be grateful, let me tell you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for answering the questions, by the way.
Oh, thank you for joining us and asking, like First Lady mentioned, asking all these excellent questions. Sometimes we are just thinking from our perspective, I guess we all do. And until we're asked those questions, we don't think about that sometimes. So this was excellent session and excellent questions, everyone, for posting. So thank you so much. And Jared, thank you so much for the reminder. Please, if you have any questions, additional questions, please feel free to post it on Slack. Catherine and I will be checking Slack, making sure additional comments and questions are answered, and go from there.
Jared, I see that a few other people have joined us. Is it okay for us to open up for any other questions?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I think this room will stay open for another 10 minutes. So feel free to hang around, or you can go back to the main room at any point. If for those folks who just joined us, please either unmute or enter into the chat any questions you have for the panel. And yeah, actually, yeah, if you folks don't mind, maybe we can stick around for a little while longer in case there are additional questions.
Sure.
No problem.
Hi, this is Leanne. I'm not new to this. I've been listening the whole time, but I guess I just have another question. It may not be relevant, but these 5 departments, I guess this project have been talked about for potential partners outside of the state to be tasked with this besides HACC? Like, for instance, 211.
We actually had a conversation with Aloha United Way 211 and understand what they also offer. So that's an excellent question, Leanne. And they have a wealth of information and resources. So what we see is that our resource app, definitely we don't want to replicate and duplicate. And that sort of going opposite direction of what this resource app concept was. At the same time, we also want to narrow down and focus on government programs to start. So once again, when a resident is already at one of our offices applying for one program, then what other connections we can make for that person based on the situation that we learn. So that's sort of a little bit of a difference between 211 and our resource directory app.
As Mamari said, we did look at 211 because we don't want to duplicate services. That wasn't our intent. But there's so many state services and so many needs within state government that we thought we'd just focus on that and do a good job with communicating across state agencies. If we could accomplish that, then we would have made it easier for people. So it was, we did discuss it quite a bit, but we did decide as a team that the need first was to be able to break down the silos between state agencies first.
Thanks for answering the question. I just I won't take up much more time here because we have to go back, but I'll communicate with you guys outside of it in the Slack. I used to work for AUW, and I did work on a project for this, specifically for this, which was
Oh,
crazy to me because I worked with a fellow um, coworker. His name is Jay King. Not too sure if you all are familiar with that, but it was specifically for the homeless entry system. And it was using a third-party application that I worked with for in the other department. And it literally was 20 questions, and it was to give the operator, it was no names, no HIPAA violations, nothing like that. It was the general qualifications for WIC, SNAP, all of that. And then at the end, the result was a list of things that the operator could give to the person to call. Now, that was just the first step of what you guys are trying to do. I get that part because that warm handoff is always what's the worst thing about it, because you give them all this information and then they go, well, I'm gonna have to repeat my story again, you know, 1,000 times. I've been accustomed to that. I know what that feels like. So I guess that's why I was asking those questions, like how far is this going to be? I know it's just in the baby stages, which is great. I saw this and I was super excited. Sorry.
we hope we can work together to make it happen.
Yeah,
So,
I look forward to it.
Leanne, are you talking about the HMIS system?
No, not
homeless?
the HMIS system.
Okay.
It was something totally different. It was when AUW got the first contract to do the 5 years homeless entry system, the CES, and a part of it was taking calls for 211 about that. So it was something that was not outside of the realm of the homeless entry system or HMIS and all of that, which was a totally separate thing. This was just something because our 211 operators were like, well, listen, they talk to us and they have all this stuff, and like you said, their system just runs the gambit, right? It just explodes with all of this, and where do I go from there? So instead of them having to click through 5 different screens, we had the form. I built it into the form that says, okay, if they answer question A with this and question Z with that, these are the things that you can then tell them that they're qualified for. At the end, in the end of that form, was all the results that they could potentially have access to, like WIC and SNAP. And we kept it very basic, like literally, what's your income? How many in your household size? Are you the head of household? You know, the general questions that all the department ask. Besides the social security numbers, we never took those kinds of information because of the HIPAA law violation. We didn't want to cross those lines. But, and in the form itself, we built it where you could put that this operator talked to this person. So whether they wanted you to give them their name, or just a first name or a second name, it was still, you know, it's like a response ID where it was unique to them, to that call. Like say we had, I was the operator, it would be like my first initial and last name, the date, and if they gave me their phone number and that person's phone number or something like that. That way we could identify them that, listen, we did talk to this person and it did say they qualify for all these things from the answers. But what we never did was then the warm handoff. Call the different agencies and say, you know, that was always the goal, but then I don't work there anymore. Sorry.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that. So that's pretty advanced. I know for the homeless, when we receive calls, we actually refer them to AUW 211
Yes.
For that exact purpose. So for this though, what's slightly different is that it's state workers. So state workers are not going to have a case manager per se, or have saying
Right.
so and so's calling in. So that's like the little bit of difference here, because we want to say state workers want to know where can we go for to get car insurance, for example.
Right.
Does that even exist? I mean, truthfully, when I started 5 years ago, I told the guy, I think you're calling the wrong number. And he told me, no, you guys have done it for me before. And I had to go research it to find out. So
Yeah.
it's something like that, where what we really want to focus on is our existing clients and expanding the services they need, especially during COVID. So it's not necessary, this is a general public, you have a question about something and you need an answer to. It's really looking from the point of a worker and may not be a case manager per se to say you're calling in and you're asking a question. Really, it's on behalf of your work or your family or individual that you're working with.
Gotcha. No, I'm excited about it.
Okay.
Information referral was my life for a few number of years. So, yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you, Leanne, for sharing your story and also your passion. That's something that we always want to definitely hear and learn from. So I really appreciate your openness and sharing your story too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Right,
guys.
totally. I
Sorry.
mean, lived experience is worth gold. So thank you so much.
Well, I had the benefit of being recipients of some of these state programs, coming back from New York, moving here from me and my little family, and then being able to work on the opposite side to get people those services. So it's been a really nice, it's always near and dear to my heart. So again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up much time. I appreciate you guys amusing me.
Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing your story. We appreciate that.
And I think we will be moving back to the main room pretty soon. Is that right, Jared?
I think so. I think any minute now, they will close this break room or this breakout room. So we'll see that.
Okay.
But yes, I want to echo that. I really love that that you brought that up, Leanne. That would be really great if from this some of the ideas can come about, like some kind of activity log that kind of keeps track of the different transactions that were done and can show, this person talked to this person and they referred to here and where along the lines that person is. That would be great.
Yeah, because, people do call in multiple times and sometimes, they're not too sure who they're talking to and they fail to write down or, you
Right.
have to make sure that you're not duplicating. And we found that to be true when we were going through all the HMIS.
Hopefully Flowing Back turned off my meeting room recording because I forgot to turn it off.
That's okay.
When you leave the event, it'll turn it off, so don't worry about it.
Wonderful. Okay.
But don't close your computer down because it has to compile somewhere, okay?
Okay. I usually don't anyway, so we're good.
Yeah, me too. So it doesn't really matter to me. I never turn off my computer unless I actually have to.
Okay, I'm on.
I'll give everybody a couple more minutes, another minute to get back before I start presenting again.
So to follow up on Michael's question, I stopped the recording, left the room, and nothing happened. So when I leave this, is that when it'll ask me to save?
That's when it compiles, after
Okay.
you leave Zoom.
Got it. All right, see y'all. Oh.
Adam, behave yourself.
I'm being good.
No, what I always say, what I always say that is, wait, maybe you should behave like somebody else